am here today to talk about something that even the most accomplished leaders struggle with sometimes, and especially those times when we are getting out of our comfort zone, and that is imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is a feeling of phoniness that people who believe that they are not intelligent, they are not capable or creative, despite of evidence of their high achievement. It's very common among high achievers and leaders who cares deeply about their work, right? Because leadership is visible and it's most of the time very vulnerable, right? Who am I to talk about leadership, right? So I have had thoughts of imposter syndrome my whole life, and how to befriend. I think it's that has been my process of like, okay, oh, that's the imposter syndrome that is showing up again, and it's here. So how can I accept those that is not the truth, that is just a thought that I'm going through, and so it doesn't paralyze us. When I was doing my coaching training program, and I was sitting in this room with 19 other students, and some of them are therapists, I had even like this older man that I look up for, he is or was, the president of a known university in New York. I don't want to expose him, but anyway, so I was sitting at a table where I was comparing myself, like PhDs in psychology or, all these other titles, very smart people. And I felt like, oh, I don't belong here, right? Who am I to be here, But the truth is that, I was there, right? I was living in New York. I could afford the program, and I passed. I was approved, in the application process. So I belong in that place. But while I was sitting there doing my training, I had all these thoughts of imposter syndrome, right? That, I wasn't enough. And there was one clear example for me when I was starting to become aware of, of this imposter syndrome, when we had our first exam, and I was waiting to hear my results. Did I pass the exam? Did I not pass the exam? And then I was seeing, wow, the man that I look up for, he didn't pass the exam. So in my head, I was like, oh, for sure, I'm not going to pass, right? If he didn't pass, like, oh my God, who am I to pass this, right? And then when again, it comes from the comparison, right? Like, comparison is, it's something that also we need to tame. It's also something that we need to become aware of, because it's very rarely that we compare ourselves and it brings anything positive, right? So when I actually got my results and I passed the test, I was like still thinking like, oh, they made a mistake, they're just being nice to me. I don't deserve this. So these are some of the thoughts that imposter syndrome brings to us, right? And ultimately, like, in the core, what we feel is that we're not enough, right? There's that fear of like, oh, I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough, right? I'm not good enough. Like, it's like, oh, I'm lucky to be here, right? It's like, so have you experienced some of that? Outcome we have, the results we have in our lives, it doesn't match our internal doesn't match our feelings, it doesn't match our internal narrative, right? And it's usually more present when we are doing something new, right? So imagine like, okay, when you got promoted at your job, or when you started a new profession, or when you became a mother and you came back to work, right? So when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, that those feelings, those thoughts, may come back, or the self-doubt dictate your choices, right? You are not alone by having those thoughts or by feeling, that you're a fraud or somebody's gonna find out, or you're lucky that you got there, because it's not going away. That's the thing. Like, imposter syndrome does not go away, right? So we have to learn to live with it, right? I don't stop myself because from pursuing new things, from doing new things, from getting out of my comfort zone. I actually prepare myself by saying like, oh, I know I'm going to, feel uncomfortable. I know there will be a learning curve. I know it's not going to be great the first time that I do anything, right? I welcome and celebrate, failure, because nothing is great at the first trials, right? So by understanding myself like better, by understanding like, okay, that's how will feel, it's normal that I feel this way in this situation, and reframing, right? Like, oh, I'm not a failure. It's like, okay, I'm still in the learning curve, right? So reframing our thoughts. If you are someone who is not doing anything new, that you're like, all right, I'm good here, so you probably don't experience any imposter syndrome, right? Perfectionist, like what happens is like we never actually put the gifts that we have to put in outwards, right? Like we have these great ideas, but they just disappear because we're not willing. If we get stuck in the self-doubt, in the imposter syndrome, we're not willing to take the risk. So meaning, well, these great ideas will fade away. You're never gonna show or share with the world what you're capable. You're never gonna challenge yourself to actually do that. So yeah, it is very sad when I look ahead, like look at your life, 10, 20 years from now, and looking back, like people have more regrets on what they haven't done than actually what they have done, right? So don't let perfectionism hold you back. If you are stuck in this, like you're taking yourself for granted, because when something it's really easy for us to do, that's our talent, right? Like it's something that you're good at, and then we kind of like diminish that by saying like, oh, everybody can do that. If I can do that, everybody can do that, and that's not always true, right? So really really checking with reality when you're having those thoughts, right? And see if you actually have evidence for it. Is it a fact or is just an interpretation? If you're sitting if you have this role, if you're sitting at this table, like for sure that's not luck. That's another way that imposter syndrome hides itself, by saying like, oh, create a list of your accomplishments, right? Create a list of all the things that you have accomplished in life, because part of this imposter syndrome is that we tend to look, only at what is missing, what we need to get better at, right? And we forget to actually put focus also on the accomplishments, right? The things we have already achieved, that we are already good at. So maybe put more light into that. Manage this imposter syndrome is to be really familiar with your strength, your values. So we have a lot of self-awareness around what we are not good at. I'm talking to my people who feels like me that they suffer from imposter syndrome, meaning like, they doubt what they're good at sometimes, despite of the evidence of contrary, right? Despite of their achievements. How can we overcome these feelings of fear, inadequacy? Ooh, now I got it. How can we overcome? Even like speaking English was something that I had a big imposter syndrome around, right? I'm like, oh my God, people will not understand what I say. I'm not a native speaker, right? I used to like, but again, I didn't let those thoughts stop me from being here talking to you today. So if I'm here, if I could do that, you can do it. And honestly, like I really challenge myself. For example, doing this in English, it could be much easier if I stay in my comfort zone and do it in Portuguese, right? Shift the narrative that you have in your head, like, oh, I'm gonna lose my job when you're like in a new role and it feels like you're struggling. You went from knowing everything in your previous role and now there's this learning curve and you feel like, oh my God, you start comparing yourself with what you think, it's like it should be, a leader should be. And then maybe you look around and you don't see any other leader like yourself, I think comparison is such a trap, right? So again, it's something that it doesn't go away when we're doing it. So we don't use it as a weapon towards ourselves because, comparison is not objective, right? It's subjective. We are comparing someone, we don't know their whole context, right? It is biased, right? This is what I'm seeing, right? A portion of that person's life, and I'm comparing to myself. I compare myself to myself, like, okay, where I was and where I am now. Stop playing safe, meaning like you don't have to have all the answers to start doing something. You don't need to know it all, right? Start taking some measurable risks, right? Start exposing yourself a little bit towards what you want to be. Started as a coach. I used to be part of this network group in New York. I went once a week, and it was like early meetings, and I was sitting again at that table, again with the imposter syndrome, feeling like I don't belong here, like looking at all of people's titles and again making myself smaller and very nervous to speak up. But I did it, and now that I look back and I feel like, wow, it was, if I knew back then what I know now, I wouldn't suffer so way to reframe it. It's like, wow, I deserve to be here.